Hi there and welcome to this episode of BehindTheBusiness.uk. If you don't know the website, go and check it out. There's all the previous episodes on there. And we're on episode number 11, John, already. Can you believe it?
I know. It's like every week's a new one. It's
That's the idea.
it's been a good one, and I'm glad you mentioned the website there, because I don't know if anybody's noticed, but we now have our handsome faces on there as well. That's Steve's trademark wink there.
Indeed, it is.
For those of you watching this in black and white, but
still as good as the one that you mentioned on one of the early episodes, John, where he says, "And if you're watching this in your car, or listening to it in your car," so because we are also on iTunes, aren't we, John?
We are indeed. We're on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, and any of your favourite audio podcast providers. YouTube, obviously, as well. Don't forget to subscribe there, and we'll keep you posted when we put our updates up there as well.
Yeah, and the easiest way to keep in touch with when John uploads the videos, because he's the guy that does all this and keeps all that going, which is fantastic, is there's a little bell on the YouTube. Just give that a click and then that'll notify you when one of our new episodes goes live for you to watch. So without further ado, John, I think we ought to get into this week's topic. And I know before you hit the record button today, we had a discussion about how we're going to plan this out very briefly. And we're trying to do as much on the fly because we want to showcase that we've got it up here. We've got the experience. We don't need to make lots of copious notes and meticulously plan what we're going to do. And that's why we might fumble and bumble a little bit and ramble on. But it's because we're doing this live. We're doing it off the cuff. But it just goes to show the amount of years of experience we both have in our, in our field of expertise, if you like. And that's why we want to just get straight into this week's episode, which I believe we said is going to be a two-parter. Is that not right, John?
I think as we were talking beforehand, we kind of realised quite how big this topic of strategy was going to be. And I think we're going to split it across a couple of episodes, whether that will be this week and next week, or whether we'll slide a little surprise in next week in between the episodes will remain to be seen. But I think we've got an awful lot of content to treat people with this week.
We have indeed, yeah. And I know, John, you're going to give a demonstration example as well. So if you are listening to this rather than watching the video, don't worry, there'll be in the show notes below, there'll be an opportunity to be able to get your hands on that, or just basically watch what John's doing, because I don't know if he's going to do a dance juggle or what. I know he used to do fire eating. I don't know if he still does that, but one of the topics. But like John just said there briefly, it's strategy we're talking about in this episode, and obviously there will be a part 2. And it's a strategy for offline and online businesses. And it doesn't matter if you're a service provider or a product supplier. We're going to cover the basics and kind of like overview it today with a little bit of a deep dive. And then the next episode, we're really going to get into the meat and potatoes kind of thing of it. But there's going to be quality, there's going to be content, there's going to be things that you can use. So stay tuned, stay with us for the next 30 minutes, there or thereabouts. And I'm sure you're going to get a lot of value out of this to help take your business forward in a positive way. So, John, when we're talking about strategy, obviously there is a lot of focus that people need to have. They need to have an understanding as well, don't they, about the business and what the outcome is that they're wanting, and to stay true to themselves and not get distracted by the old, shiny object syndrome of this doesn't seem to be working. Oh, look, there's someone saying I can do this and I can do that. And yeah, I know that I said before we started recording today that it doesn't necessarily matter what methods and systems you use within your strategy. If your message isn't on point for your ideal client, and I spoke and explained the task about how to find your ideal client in the previous episode. So, go back and have a look at that one to get yourself up to speed on that. But it's always about, not getting distracted. So do you want to just, go through that side of staying focused and some more to do with that, John?
Yeah, absolutely. I think really important what you've just said. It doesn't matter what strategy you pick. You've just got to have one, right? That's the main thing. What we've done in the episodes up to now is we've given you, the listener or the watcher, we've given you specific areas of strategy to think about and to sort of plug into your business model. So rather than give you a business model to follow in this episode, we're talking about the importance of you developing one that's going to work for you and how you potentially develop that. And the first key to doing that is to be absolutely solidly focused on, this is the service or the product that I want to provide, and this is how I want to do it. Now, the first part of that is dead easy, because you will presumably already have an idea of what you want to provide and why you want to provide it. And this is why business plans are always a buzzword for new businesses, because it forces you to think about these questions. And there's a reason that organizations want you to think about these questions, is because if you think about these questions and you get these questions right in your own mind to the point where you can focus on providing those services and those products properly, you're much more likely to succeed. So you need to be thinking about what it is you want to do and how you want to do it. And if you haven't done that, I suggest you go back and listen to the previous 10 episodes, because we've given you all kinds of information about that. But the real importance to having a quote unquote strategy to what you do is it gives you a framework for your day. It means that you don't forget to do things that you need to do for your business. And the important things are telling people about your business and taking their money, selling them your product or your service. If you haven't got a strategy in place for doing those things, or as they're known in the trade, a marketing plan and a sales plan, if you don't have those things, you're not going to follow them. You're going to be, as Steve said, shiny object syndrome. Oh, that looks like a good idea, I'll go and try that. Oh, I'll go and try that person's video looks quite good. And then suddenly you've spent 3 days looking on YouTube at videos that don't give you information that you need to apply, when instead you should have come straight to us, listen to what we've got to say, and then apply it. And there's a very, very easy way to find out whether or not you're being sucked in by the bells and whistles. Are all the videos you're watching promising you the earth, and are they full of bells and whistles? Is it style over content? Because your business is only going to benefit from content and from applying the advice that works for you. So that's a very, very wordy way of saying it doesn't matter what strategy you pick. You can go through videos like this one and you can decide that might work for me, it might not. I'll try it, I might not try it, whatever. We had a conversation, I think it was last week, about whether to do online marketing or the benefits of offline marketing. If you remember the silly envelope example that we showed. Well, both Steve and I, we have very, very different business strategies in our day-to-day thing, but there's just there's an overlap. So again, very, very garbled way, Steve, and I apologize for the garble, but it's a very garbled way of saying you have to be focused on what is important for your business, and the way to do that is to become very clear about, these are my goals for the short term, for the medium term, for the long term. And you have to sit there and not just write down, I want to make £1 million in a year, right? And I know I use that example all the time because it's a flippant example. It's not feasible for most new businesses, especially when you don't know what you don't know. Do
you know, John, if I can just interject for 2 seconds, there's just 2 things I want to touch on. That you just said about the £1 million thing, and I'll get back to that in a second. But the first thing I want to just touch on, and you've covered quite a lot in a very short space of time there, that people want to listen to again and again, I'm sure. But the one thing is, like you said, people will say, well, I'll try it, I'll give this a go, And you're right. That's people's mentality, though. This is where you help people, though, is that people saying, I'm going to try this. From where I sit within businesses, I say, well, yeah, if you want to try that, you go ahead and try it. And it's not going to work. I'll tell you now, it's not going to work. If you're going to try it, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
It's like the analogy of there's 5 frogs on a log. 4 frogs decide they're going to jump off. How many frogs are left on the log? And people are going, well, 1. No, 5. Reason being, 4 said they were going to jump off. Never said they jumped off. They're going to. So if you're going to try it, you can do, or you can go all out and bloody well do it. Yeah, exactly. So, and just that other quick point about the £1 million thing, flippant is, I've said to people before now, they've said the same thing, and you're right. People do say, "Oh, so what do you want to, make in the next 12 months?" I want £1 million business. Why? And the look on the face is like a stand saying, "Well, why not? Why wouldn't I want £1 million?"
Yeah.
All right. Well, you want to make £1 million in your business. Well, what happens if out of that £1 million you're left with a tenner?
Yeah, exactly.
Because you haven't built your business right, you haven't structured it properly, so you can make £1 million. And it's just that usual vanity sanity scenario that people talk about.
Yeah, there are certain different aspects to that £1 million
My God, that was
thing.
almost a rant by me, wasn't it?
No, it was.
The tone in my voice really went off on there.
And the thing is that when people and I see this all the time, particularly with online marketers, I don't know what it is, but it seems to be rife, and it's that idea of you make £1 million. Well, what they're talking about is turnover.
Yeah.
They're not talking about profit. They're not talking about making anything. They're talking about turning over £1 million. It's not the same thing. It doesn't mean anything like the same thing. And you could turn over £1 million, but it could have cost you 9,000, 900,500, whatever. It could have cost you all that to make it, but you still achieved your goal. So
it's like the amount of leads as well, John. Same thing. Some marketing companies will say, look, we'll get you between 150 and 200 leads a week. Brilliant. But what's the quality of them? How many of those are actually going to convert?
Are they going to buy?
Yeah, but they put the onus on the business owner saying, well, our task is to get you this amount of leads.
No, it's to qualify the leads. It's to get me qualified leads.
Absolutely.
Qualified leads.
And this is all part of the strategy that we're talking about. It's understanding what mechanics go into your strategy. So,
that also harks back to the conversation we had last week about the done for you solutions. You have to know what they're talking about, because there are people out there who will say, we will get you 200 leads a week. Well, anybody could do that. You just ask 200 people, go and look at this website. It doesn't mean they're interested.
Exactly.
You need 200 interested people a week.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what's the point?
It is. And literally, I've been speaking to a company this week, and they've asked me, they wanted me in on a meeting that had the two directors of the company. They had a meeting with a marketing company from somewhere else. It's in the UK, but they said, look, we need you in. I said, well, I'm already at a meeting with another client and I can't make it. So, they said, well, look, we're going to send you all the details they send us. We're going to let you know well in advance when the next meetings are. And we want you to come in and sit as a consultant for us to listen to what they've got to say. Because of my years of experience of what I do, for businesses, and understanding the marketplace of podcasts, what we're doing, obviously, SEO, paid ads, whether it's Google PPC, whether it's Facebook, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's Bing ads, and people don't always use Bing, but you know what? It's a cheaper platform than Google, but people miss it, and there's all different organic stuff, and then they're going to do video, they're going to do email, they're going to do everything. And I turn around to the director of the company and says, that sounds brilliant, and I'm happy to come and sit in on the meetings and one thing and another. What do you want out of it? And they're like, well, we're going to get them to do this, that, and the other, and they're going to deal with it for us. They're going to sort it all out. And it's like you said, the done for you scenario is, and I kept going back to them is, but what do you want to get out of this? What's your desired outcome and why? And what's it going to do for your business? How is it going to move the needle? How's it going to take your business forward in a positive way? Yes, you want to grow. Yes, you want to expand in the marketplace. Yes, you want to attract more clients. And and it's something that we discussed before. We did it in the early episodes of how to handle the influx and then how to get the influx.
Yeah.
We flipped it around. One of the directors said, look,
you've not got strategy in place to handle growth. You shouldn't be looking at growth, because all you'll do is destroy your business.
And that's exactly what they're doing at the moment, John. They're looking to actually get more brand awareness, attract more people to see what they do and that they are one of the leading experts. I know there's other companies in their marketplace now talking about them. So they're doing something very right because competitors are talking about them. And that's always a positive thing in my eyes, because they're not necessarily frightened or scared. but they've noticed you. And when you get noticed by competition, they're obviously starting to think, whoa, we better keep an eye on them. But they're looking to, like you say, they're looking to grow and expand. And I've said to them, well, what are you going to do when you get this influx? What's your strategy for handling that? And they're like, well, we can't just employ a load of people until we get all the business coming in. So we need to get the business in. I went, if you do that, your service levels are going to fall off a cliff if you're not careful. There's so much you can do that doesn't cost. You can plan and prepare and have it all sat there on the back burner. That's literally just a lot of it is a click of the switch with a lot of the stuff. And then you can roll it out and build it up.
Yeah, that's right.
But that's part of strategy, though.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I think you alluded to something else there as well, which was what do you want out of your business? How do you know it? For me, strategy has to be financial to a large degree, particularly in your first year of business, because if you don't have a financial strategy in place, you're not going to get the cash flow. Is going to fall on its face because as you rightly said, things happen and you haven't got the money in yet.
That's a good point, actually, John. And that's one, because I start this off saying it was about offline businesses and online. What you've just said there is absolutely key and paramount to offline businesses, because they have a lot of overhead to run, don't they, compared to an online business?
Compared to online businesses, but regardless, I mean, any business has unthought about cost. But I mean, the old adage is with marketing is your marketing budget should be 10% of your projected sales.
Yeah, of course.
That's just the standard ratio. But if you've not got a strategy in place for how you're going to make that 10% and everything else, you're spending that money before you've got the sales in by its nature, because that's marketing. It doesn't matter whether your marketing budget is 100 quid or 10,000 quid. You've still got to find that money. And
that's why people, as part of the strategy, they need to look at alternatives. They need to look at organic. They need to look at ways to actually bring leads in. I know people that have literally, they're doing 20, and some people I know are doing £50,000 a month, and they've not spent a penny on paid ads. It's all organic.
Yeah.
It's
which is why it's important that we're having this conversation about strategy. And it's not the strategy. We're not dictating the strategy you use, but we're saying to you, you need to think about what's going to work for you. And one of the key factors in deciding on your strategy for your first year or your first couple of years of business, certainly for your early targets, your early goals, is what is your budget? And if you don't have the money, how are you going to work around it? What's the organic reach? How are you going to increase that? And that's where someone like Steve comes in. Now, the other thing that people forget when they're putting those goals together is, and again, we alluded to this when we were talking about the difference between a project and a business, a sustainable business, is the contribution of the project, of the product. If you've got a goal, if you set yourself a goal to make $1 million or $250,000 or whatever it may be in the first year, and you've got a product which you forecast to bring in 50 grand, you're short already. So what are you going to do? Where's your plan?
Yeah.
Because you can almost guarantee that someone who says to you, like, you'll know this, Steve. If you say to somebody, what is your goal for the first year? And they go, I want to make £750,000 quid. You can almost guarantee that they have no idea what their one product that they have is forecast to bring in for that year.
We've done this before, though, John. When the first business I ever launched was actually a logistics company. A lot of people don't know the story about that. Very simple. I set it up on £1,400 on a credit card, and I made over £4.65 million. So, and the profit margin on that was 38%. So that's not too shabby when you're looking at percentages. You talked about turnover, exactly. So, That's what all that's about. But I went to a lot of exhibits. I went to the NEC, which is a big place in the UK near Birmingham, on the outskirts of Birmingham, and it's where it was the Europe's biggest interiors show in Europe. All the manufacturers of bed furniture, dining room furniture, and one thing and another, they exhibited there. And the price.
I've exhibited there myself. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and because we had the logistics company, we had warehouses all over the UK and over in Ireland and in Southern Ireland, a fleet of vehicles galore. We delivered for some of the biggest brands out there. Harrods, John Lewis, Laura Ashley, you name it. We were delivering for these companies, and we had these other people coming to our stand saying, "We want to do, delivery service, and what do you charge?" We said, "Well, what's your forecast?" Literally, it's what do you forecast? How many sales are you doing? We're just going to launch the business, so we're just getting everything in place. So I'm like, okay, so you're fishing around, you're trying to find out some information, researching. That's fine. That's good, planning preparation. But when you turn around to them and said, and it happened so many times, year on year out, and it was like, well, how many sales are you looking to do then? What's your forecast? It says, oh, we're going to be doing 250, orders a month. So it's right. And at what month in the first 2 years are you going to do that? And I went, 2 years? No, we're going to do that in the first couple of months. Wow. Well,
how?
Do you want to share with me how you're going to launch this amazing business? Because I've been in business for many, many years, and the model and the business that they were going into was in wooden dining room furniture. That's particular one it was. I remember it very distinctly because it was Indian oak wood that they were using. And I'm like, well, how do you think you're going to sell that amount of units within the first month or two? Have you got a huge budget to push it and market and promote it out there? Because even at that, your budget is going to outweigh your income. So it's actually going to be a loss if you're projecting to have that amount in such a short space of time, unless you know something I don't. Unless you've got another business and this is like a bolt-on, and that business is going to subsidize the new one, and that's how you're going to offset the numbers. But obviously, we're talking numbers and something else now. But it was that understanding, and like you said, it's being clear and being realistic. Yeah. Yes, set goals, and you mentioned before we went live about milestones. I think you're going to be obviously mentioning when you reach those. Well, be clear and understand your forecasting, because if you need to go to a bank for money, and part of your strategy is, I need this amount of money to cover me for this period of time, because when I hit this milestone, this is where my business is going to be, and the bank manager is going to be smiling because they're going to be making money out of me. So this is, all part of this discussion. It's a big discussion about strategy. And people might get a bit bored thinking, I just want to get out there and sell. But you need to get the fundamentals right. We might sound like a right bore, but if you miss these component parts in your business, it's like anything.
Yeah.
The recipe doesn't deliver the cake you want at the end, so to speak.
No, that's right. And I think that's the thing is, it doesn't matter what you end up choosing as a strategy or a plan or whatever. What matters is you commit to it and you go with it and you move forward, and you don't get distracted by those other things. You have to be focused on,
even when times get tough, don't you?
Yeah, because they will. Because as we've said repeatedly, unexpected things come along. Like pandemics or, other costs that you weren't expecting. Because as we've said before, you don't always know what you don't know until it hits you.
And that you've just said a very good point there, actually, John, which is those unseen costs. So two very quick examples is an offline business. An unexpected cost could be if you have a building and it has a roof cave in or some major problem with it, but it's your responsibility, not the landlord's, to fix it. That could be costing you thousands, tens of thousands, possibly, depending on what the problem is, to put it right. If you're an online business, a problem, an unseen, could be your supplier can't meet the demand. And so far, you have to find another supplier, but their costs are higher than your current one. So all of a sudden, your profit margin is getting squeezed. Now, do you make a decision? Do you up your prices and potentially lose some customers? And we've touched on the pricing thing on a previous episode, so I'll not go through that again. Or do you stick with the price and soak up the profit? Or do you start having to give the hard word on your current supplier saying, look, you are damaging my business, depending on the relationship you've got And again, you touched on relationship with the text message you got, obviously, before Valentine's Day on the previous episode,
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
and how that can go wrong. You know, you forgot about that one, didn't you? So that was a good
I've been
episode.
trying.
Yeah. So that was a good episode to listen back to. Anyway, but again, these are the two different things of offline and online that can have an effect on your business. It's like what John's just been saying. It's an unforeseen cost. So you need to be prepared for that. And having a strategy helps you plan because, as John said, have a strategy, helps you plan, helps you prepare, you get things done, you can be clear about what your outcome is. Yeah. And John, do you want to like pick this up and carry on? Because I know you mentioned a really good analogy about milestones and also another one about Napoleon Hill we discussed as well.
Yeah. So I'm just we're coming up rapidly on half an hour, so I'll very quickly just go through. First of all, we talked about focus a minute ago. Napoleon Hill tells a story. It's called 3 Feet from Gold, about a guy who was in the gold fields who started digging for gold. He found a little bit of gold. The seam dried up, so he gave away his plot. And the guy who took his plot on got an expert in who said, "Keep digging." He dug for three more feet, and he found the richest vein of gold in that area. You know, and it's really an analogy for don't give up. If you don't meet your milestone where you think you're going to meet it, you've got a decision to make. Now, you don't know whether you've met your milestone or not unless you've got a milestone written down. So that's your first job. And I suggest this is your homework as you think about what's your main goal going to be for your first year in this program or in business? What do you want to achieve? And make it practical, and make sure you sit there and you take a good day to sort of sit down and say, here's a spreadsheet. What's it going to cost me to put this product out? What's it going to cost me to market this product? What do I want to bring in? What do I need to live on for this first year? And how much of that do I need to sell in order to do that? Well, is that going to be possible? Or do I need to be looking at adding another product to this? You know, but until you've done that, you don't know whether what you've got in your head is even possible. Okay, but once you've got a goal that you know you've got financial or at least a semblance of an idea of, look, it seems like it might be practical, then you work towards it and you keep working towards it, and you look at it and you say, right, in order to achieve this, I've done this exercise in the last week where I set myself every couple of years I set myself new projects, and I set myself a new project, and I've done this. So I've got financial goals for the next 7 months each month. So you just work it backwards. You say, that is my main goal for this year. What do I need to do each month in order to achieve that by the end of the year? Well, that's what I need to do. And then you work towards your first goal. You work towards your second goal. But that means that if you get towards the time where you were going to achieve your first goal and you say, I'm a bit behind here, I might be a month behind. Well, does that mean you need to change your strategy? Or does it mean you need to keep digging?
Yeah.
You're not going to know that unless you know inside out what plan you're following, what strategy you're using. You're just not going to know, So that, I think, is going to be your homework, is to say, right, because if you've done all your previous homeworks, you should already know what your product or your service is going to be, why you want to deliver it, who you're delivering it to. You know who your ideal customer is. Now all you're doing is you're building a sales plan.
Exactly.
Steve, if you remember the last episode, Steve gave you chapter and verse on a system for doing that, certainly online. Absolutely brilliant. He gave you an absolute goldmine. So go back, revisit it, decide if that's the system you want to use, but whatever strategy you choose to use, put that together, stick with it. Give yourself 1 year goal. Break it down. financially break it down so that you know, because we're talking about business, and business is about making money. I don't care what you say. I do what I do because I love helping people. But if I don't make enough money to eat, I ain't helping anybody. So it's regardless of, it doesn't matter, you can be the most capitalist person in the world, or you can be the most, completely the opposite. Everyone still needs to eat. So that's your main priorities. Put a spreadsheet together, work out, is this going to be practical? Because if it's not, find out now.
Exactly.
Because the other thing that people don't realize, because they're so used to people talking about turnover as profit, is they don't realize that when you said 5 minutes ago, my profit margin was 38%, that is a phenomenally high profit margin for any business. It's not bad.
I mean, you look at the sports industry, they have obscene margins in sports.
Well, I'm not talking about people kicking a ball around a field.
But no, I'm on about the sports leisure industry with the apparel and that.
Yeah,
that's I know people that are running off like 96%. I mean,
yeah. But how long for? I mean, I think that there is a point here though, which is
people
do not understand what an average profit margin for their industry necessarily is, and they're used to people talking about 90% profit margins or double your money, or especially in the online sort of info marketing world, because you're right, the overheads are a lot lower and potentially you've got a much larger market. But if we're talking about a process which is applicable to any industry, those margins are unusual. It's that thing of being, we talked about it before, the echo chamber, being in a bubble because we're online. And even me and you, Steve, to a certain extent, we are self-selecting in this because we use online medium. This is an online podcast, so we're used to talking about those kind of figures.
Yes.
But it's one industry. And it's not even a very big industry. It's big financially, but as far as the amount of space it takes up in the world, it's not that big, No,
it's not.
But you look at any other industry, I mean, people talk about these huge companies. Coca-Cola is a massive company, they've got billions of pounds in the bank. Amazon, billions of pounds in the bank. Those companies, they work on volume, not on margin.
Yeah.
And if you're a new business with very small budget, you don't have the resources to work on that kind of volume. So those margins, those kind of margins, if you're looking to be a new Amazon, you don't have the budget to move past that stage, you're going to get kicked in the teeth over and over again, and you won't even know what's hit you, because you're expecting your margins to be your profit.
Yeah.
And it's not the case. Because so that's why I kind of stomped on that a little bit, Steve, because
no, quite rightly,
I just wanted to make the point that, Steve's absolutely right. There are industries, including what Steve does, which do come with those kind of inherently high margins, but it's one industry and it's not necessarily the industry you've picked.
Exactly. So I think knowing your numbers is key, isn't it?
You absolutely need to. And if you're going to think strategically, which you have to do, then you need to spend some time looking at Excel, putting some figures in and saying, right, well, what do I need to earn? And that is as boring and as mundane as saying, how much is my rent? How much do I spend on food? Have I got kids? Have I got a mortgage to pay? Have I got a car to run? I mean, it's boring stuff, and it's the sort of stuff that you don't want to think about.
No, and I think if we break down Yeah, I think what we need to do, John, is because obviously we've crammed a lot into the 30 minutes thereabouts we've done already today. I think it might be a good plan. And you've set some homework for people, and you know, I encourage everybody to do that homework. It's a simple spreadsheet. Even if you can't do spreadsheets, get a piece of paper and just write on it month 1, month 2, month 3, right the way through to month 12, and then just put your milestones and put your financials in there. And put your strategy, what part of the strategy you're at, what tasks should you have completed, what processes should you have rolled out and planned, prepared, and got active within your business. Keep it moving forward to keep on track. That's absolutely a fairly big homework, but it's achievable if you're serious about business. Like John says, give it a good full day, you know, or do it, you know, once you've had your morning coffee and you're fired up. And John talked about the energy levels at previous podcast that we did. Get it when you're at your highest. Then do it. And if that's only for half a day, fine. Then the next day, do the other half. Well, then don't let you go into day 3, day 4, because you're going to be going like this onto your dip that John explained what all that was about. And you don't want to be planning in the bottom of the dip, you know, because you're not going to get the best out yourself.
I think that's going to be a great homework. And I think if people can do that, then maybe the next time around, we'll talk about, once you've got those milestones and once you've got that key sort of first big chunk goal, how do you then break that down and break your milestones down further to give you a strategic focus and a plan to achieve that, so that you don't get distracted and you don't sort of veer off.
Yeah, I think that's great. So episode 2, sorry, the second part, of this episode of strategy, we're obviously going to give you more to work on. So this has been the planning and the understanding of the strategy, and what to avoid, what to try and disregard, and what to stay focused on, so you can plan things, prepare, and get things done. And like John says, the homework there is set. Go and get that done before next episode, where we'll do part 2, and we'll really start to give you even more value, and we'll show you the sort of things that you ought to be considering on what to do in your business with regards to milestones, where you should be positioning yourself, and what needs to happen in your business to make those milestones achievable and stay on track to get your business where you want it to be. And don't forget, turnover, forget it. It's the profit you're interested in. And we can talk about, maybe touch on the different numbers on that on next episode. So unless you want to add anything else to that, John, before we sign off?
No, I don't think so. I think I will just apologize for the sort of the garbled start to this episode. I think it was one of those things, but I think the content that what we ended up talking about, I think, has been particularly useful and very important, because I don't think we've touched on it, but I think making it explicit is important. But yeah.
And I think that's why we're going to, you know, take the time to do it over 2 episodes, rather than cram it all into one, and miss vital parts out as well. We'd be doing you, the listener or the viewer, a disservice if we didn't, you know, cover the strategy part of a business in a bit more detail. So we really appreciate your time as always. Thank you very much for staying tuned and following the behindthebusiness.uk. Selfless plug for the website again there, John. Obviously, we're on all the podcasts that you can think of. We're on the iTunes, Apple Play. We're on YouTube, obviously. So until the next episode, where we'll continue about strategy, have a great day, and we'll speak to you soon.